afternoon. Welcome to this week's episode of Creative Corner. We are going to learn drawing basics, but before I get into the demonstration, I first would like to go over the supplies we'll be using in today's workshop. So the supplies in front of me, you don't necessarily have to use. I just brought some of my own personal stuff, but if you request a supply kit through our curbside checkout services, you'll be able to receive 10 pieces of drawing paper. You will also receive these lovely Woodless graphite pencils, as well as an eraser. Now with the graphite pencils, they're on a scale between HB and B, and I'll go a little bit over the details of that here in a bit. But I also have a clear ruler, my architect's ruler, a compass, my mechanical pencil, and 3 different types of erasers as well. With the Woodless graphites, I did briefly talk about HB and B. So if you think of these pencils on a scale, probably can't see that, on a scale. So on one side, you have all of your H's, and then on the other side, you have all of your B's. B's are going to be your darkest colors, and H's are going to be your lightest colors. Right here in the middle, you have your common HB, which is your number 2 pencils that you receive in school supplies, and it's the most common pencil. So this is going to be your middle ground. In this pencil case that you'll receive, you'll get a standard HB. You also get a number 2, a number 4, and a number 6. And I think I wrote my numbers backwards because I'm writing upside down. I'm going to be showing you how to do this workshop using a mechanical HB pencil. But you're more than welcome to explore the relationship between both the B pencils that I'm providing as well as the H pencils that are not provided. So let's go ahead and get started on this workshop. We just get a clean piece of paper. So we're going to look at 3 different things: perspective, form, and lighting. When we think about perspective on your piece of paper, you have 3 different areas. You have the foreground, middle ground, and background. Your foreground is going to be everything that is going to be closest to you. The middle ground is everything right at the horizon line. And then of course your background is everything that's further away. The horizon line can be anywhere on your piece of paper. So if I wanted to, I could have the horizon line here. When we think about form, you can put any object you want. I decided to go ahead and use a ball. So this ball right now is in the foreground. Next, we got to think about lighting. So to make this as real as possible, you're going to think of your light source. So this is the direction of which your light is coming from. And we'll go ahead and explore that relationship here in a bit. So in order to start out, we're going to determine our horizon line. And I'm going to do it very lightly so that way I can erase it later. Now, I myself can't draw circles very well, so that's why I have a compass. You can get any round object if you want, like a lid for a bottle cap, mason jar. So it's really up to you how you want to be able to draw this circle. But I'm going to use this compass. And just draw a circle. And And because my horizon line goes through the circle, I want to go ahead and use my eraser and erase the portion of the horizon line that's in the circle. Next up, I do want to establish where my light is coming from. So because this is a two-dimensional surface, to make it three-dimensional, you gotta pick and choose which direction your light is coming from. So for instance, let's say I wanted to draw this eraser. If I want the light source coming from back right, back left, this is my right. So from the back left, you're gonna draw your cast shadows on the left-hand side, and vice versa, depending on where your light's coming from. So because I have my ball here, I would like to have my light source coming in from the top right. So my cast shadow is going to be somewhere along this area here. When I draw, I like to make my lines very light, so that way it's easier to erase. And I don't like to put anything solid until I know for sure where everything is coming from. And because I established where my light source is coming from, balls, depending on the material, has where the light hits it. So that's going to be your brightest point on the surface. And then from there, you kind of want to radiate outwards and gradually increase the darkness. So here it's going to be white, then you're going to have light gray, gray, medium gray, and then at the very bottom, black. So with your wood pencils, should have opened this in advance, but I have my fresh pencils. And on these pencils, you probably can't see it right now, but toward the bottom of the pencil, you'll say HB, 6B, 4B, and 2B. So we're going to start out with our HB. Start out very light where the light source is hitting. Then we're going to continue on and go to 2B. The rate of which you press down also affects the shading process. So that's 2B. And then I don't know if you can tell, but as I continue with these pencils, you'll see that it's a little bit darker. So there's our beginning. And in order to shade this, you can grab yourself an extra piece of paper, some tissue, paper towels. If you want to use your finger, you're more than welcome to use your finger. But you're just gonna smudge so that way you're blending this area. Get a piece of paper. And as you can tell, my little ball is a little flat because it looks all the same color gray. So I'm going to use my eraser, start from the light source, make it light, and just work my way up. And if you want to build up on your form, all you have to do is just get your pencils again, add a little bit of more, and it's all about building up the relationship between light and dark, and all your whites, your grays, your blacks. So it looks like we're making some really good progress. And get my eraser and erase the smudge marks around the ball that I have. You want to make sure to keep the shape, so try your best not to go into the actual sphere that you have. This technique is called pushing and pulling. So just building upon your grays that you have. Or I don't have the best light source on this ball. I'm gonna make my cast shadow. And when you make shadows, you want to make sure that the very edge of your shadow is nice and light, and as it gets closer to the object, you're going to go darker. Just use my eraser, get rid of some of these lines, and make my shadow a little bit more nicer. And then just define my horizon line just a tad bit. So this is a good start to building three-dimensional objects on two-dimensional surfaces. So a couple of techniques. What I just did is just drawing back and forth just to fill in the space. There's other techniques that you can use to build up form. One of the other things is called hatching, where you just make parallel lines going the same direction on the form itself. There's also such thing as cross hatching, where you build perpendicular lines in order to do the same shading effect that I just did. The last thing is called stippling, where you use dots to build up the form as well. You can use any one of these techniques to help you build the sphere. I just did the very first one here. So now that we have some of the basics down, let's go ahead and try to build a different object. So I'm going to work side to side. I'm going to draw my horizon line. And on this one, we're gonna focus a little bit more on perspective. So, for perspective, we are gonna talk a little bit about vanishing point. Spheres don't have vanishing points, but all other objects do. So if we wanted to make a cube right here in the foreground, what you want to do is go ahead and determine where the middle of your object is going to be. And we're going to have 2 vanishing points on our horizon line. Now in order to do this, all you need to do is get your ruler, start from the bottom of this cube that we have, and you're going to draw 2 lines. So one from the bottom of this line to the vanishing point, and one at the top. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And just make sure that your lines are light enough that you can erase it later. Okay. So then I'm going to make another parallel line on either side. And I'm just eyeballing this. And then where these 2 lines are, you're going to connect to the opposite vanishing point. So there, we have a nice cube. I'm just going to get my eraser and erase the lines that I just made, as well as the vanishing points. All I have to do is just redraw my horizon line. And just darken my lines just a tad bit. As you can tell, this isn't a perfect cube. So in order to work on this, like I mentioned, we're going to determine which direction our light source is going to be coming from. So I think on this one, I'm going to use my light source coming from, so if we look at it, this is our object, so it's going to be coming in from the top left hand side. So most of this space is going to be white, except possibly for the very edge. Just do a nice little light gray. And because there's not a whole lot of light source coming in on the side as well as the top, we want to do a light gray and then just transition all the way to dark gray. And you always want to work with your lightest colors going all the way to darkest colors. Then I'm going to very lightly make our little cast shadow. And it still has to have the same shape of the cube itself. Last but not least, we just gotta define our cube lines. So I have my darkest pencil, which is 6B. I don't want to go too dark on these lines. I just want to define them just a tad bit. Just use it to darken the shaded area. But there we have it. So just a brief recap. We learned about different pencils, so ranging from H to B, and then we have the middle ground, which is HB. Then we learned about form, perspective, and lighting. We applied those techniques to make this sphere or ball, and then I also briefly mentioned different shading techniques you can use, and then we applied all of this to create this cube. It's not a perfect cube, but it's a cube. So if you want, you're more than welcome, like I mentioned, to go to our online curbside checkout request form that we have on our website. Request your very own drawing supplies and then try this at home.